It's a concentration camp fence.
It's a concentration camp. I mean, that's
well, it's like or like corral for cattle. It's like how you would treat, and that, make no mistake, that the intentional starvation, in addition to the getting rid of UNRWA, in addition to how they're handling their aid, all of it is designed not just to kill them, but to completely degrade and dehumanize them. Do you have any idea how disgusting you have to be to think that this is an acceptable way to help people in need? Line them up in corrals in the hot sun to sit around and wait for a box of what they don't even need. It's just all bullshit. But anyway, I'm not sure what this post is if you want to talk about it. But
well, this is a post from your friends over at Jewish Voice for Peace. The mercenaries in the U.S.-Israeli government's so-called aid operation in Gaza, run by military contractors, because of course it is, and resembling prison concentration camps, are firing on the very Palestinians it's supposed to help. Can you imagine trying to line up like caged animals to get some type of humanitarian aid? And what do the Zion Nazis decide to do? Shoot them.
Well, that's why they're doing it this way. That's exactly the point. When you starve people for 90 days, and then you trickle in and you set it up in a way to create chaos, you're doing it so that you can justify killing them. That is 100% why they do it this way. And there is even a more nefarious motive that Jeremy will explain, which has to do like facial recognition and starting to register them. Yeah, that kind of Nazi scary shit. That's not about helping them. If this was about helping them, they would have left UNRWA alone. And if they were about helping them, they would maybe stop bombing them. But Jeremy Scahill, who I think is great, has done some really good work lately covering this. I mean, not just this, but all things Hamas. And in fact, had a meeting with and an interview with Hamas leadership not that long ago, and has put out a lot of information from that meeting. And it was just, yeah, he's been killing it. I'd love to have him on. But anyway, he does a really good job explaining the aid setup that we have in Gaza.
Starving Palestinians forced to wait for hours in the sun. I mean, you want to talk about the sun. Why don't you talk about how hot the sun is? Like probably 120 degrees in the sun outside.
And they're already starving.
Yeah. An aid facility near Al-Mawasi in Rafah, after walking an average of 9.3 miles.
Exactly.
Finally surged inside after
they set up the food far away from where the people are so that they would have to do that.
Mm-hmm. After relentless delays and invasive surveillance and security checks, not just in search of food, but in an attempt to survive. Apparently, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, GHF, a U.S.-funded, Swiss-registered operation led by a former U.S. Marine, set up by the bypass-established NGOs and UN agencies.
It's run by spooks.
Lost control of the facility and fled. So they just left them there. Mm-hmm. As elderly Palestinian man's family reported, an elderly Palestinian man's family reported that he was kidnapped by the Israeli military after approaching the Mirage Crossing.
Yes.
Site for a box of food. Meanwhile,
they're using it as that's another thing. They're using it as a means to take people and kidnap them.
Yep. Meanwhile, GHF faces internal collapse, and its own administration is stepping down because of ethical concerns, you think. At least one person claimed he was unable to carry out GHF's mission without violating basic humanitarian principles. GHF's plan to deliver and through 4 heavily guarded hubs falls massively short of meeting the people of Gaza's urgent needs, leaving nearly half of the Palestinian population without aid access and excluding the most vulnerable. The UN has already refused to work with the GHF. UN spokesperson Farhan Haq has confirmed that this particular distribution plan does not accord with our basic principles, including those impartiality, neutrality, independence, and we will not be participating in this. How much longer is this, Colin?
I want to. I see. That's why I wanted to show it. It would have been much easier to just let him.
Yeah, no, I'll just finish it up. This is the grim reality for Palestinians trapped under siege by the Israeli military. Insufficient aid, poorly organized, delivered at gunpoint by military contractors in coordination with the Israeli military. Instead of GHF, established international organizations operating under the UN should be granted full, safe, and unlimited access to deliver aid effectively, impartially, and with dignity. There is no time to waste. Stop funding the Israeli military, end the siege, let in UN coordinated aid, demand an immediate ceasefire, end the occupation, free Palestine.
Yeah, that was unnecessarily lengthy. But I really think that Jeremy did a really good job saying what I wanted to make sure people know about the actual aid process and how nefarious it is.
Well, Amy, we should be very clear that this cutout of a company, cutout is a term of espionage. It was established by people with ties to the CIA and Israeli intelligence.
Something's wrong with this.
Was meant to serve as part of Netanyahu's war of annihilation. Netanyahu himself said the quiet part out loud in a recent speech when he said that he was getting some pressure even from his most passionate backers in the Republicans in the Senate. And he said, that they didn't want the optics of starving Palestinians and that this could hinder the ability of the United States to continue arming and supporting Netanyahu. And so they wanted to give the veneer of some form of aid. And Netanyahu and Israel have been at war against UNRWA, the UN agency that was established in the aftermath of the Nakba in the late 1940s when the state of Israel was imposed on Palestine as a European colonial settler state. And so this serves two purposes. It allowed Netanyahu to say, look, we're letting aid in and we're doing it so that Hamas can't steal it, which, by the way, was a lie. And even Biden's top humanitarian official, David Satterfield, said this week that there was no evidence ever presented by Israel that Hamas was stealing or hoarding the aid. So part of it.
This has been a conversation that never ends, but it's a lie. It's a big lie. Hitler always said that the bigger the lie, the more people will believe it. Well, you know what? They've told this lie so long, forever, that I just don't know who the hell is still falling for it other than those who are completely indoctrinated by the Zionist cause. But anytime you hear it was Hamas's fault, who is really still believing that, I think is the question.
Nobody. And this is this is why this is such a good clip. So he does the preface as to why they're even pretending to let food in. And then we'll get into and how they're doing that, and against the backdrop, by the way, of how for years and years and years they've been trying to get rid of UNRWA. And if you do not know what UNRWA is, UNRWA exists to support Palestinian refugees. And they want to get rid of UNRWA because without UNRWA, they no longer have to worry about that pesky right of return of refugees if they no longer have refugees. Anyhow.
It was to give the veneer of we're doing something humanitarian. The other part of it was to continue the war against UNRWA, to destroy the premier aid organization serving Palestinian refugees, forcibly displaced people. And UNRWA, its very existence, Netanyahu and Israel hate because it recognizes the international laws that say that the Palestinians have a right to return to their land that they started to lose in 1947, 1948 when the Nakba began. So they created this shell company with ties to American intelligence officers as a way of further destroying UNRWA, but also serving Netanyahu's agenda. They then bring in an American mercenary company.
That's it right there.
Blackwater style guys that you saw in Iraq and Afghanistan throughout the so-called war on terror. And then they created what international aid officials have said are concentration camp or internment camp like conditions. Others have likened it to ghetto style conditions where Palestinians are going to be forced to stand out in the heat all day in barbed wire fence enclosures looking like a cage. And then they get a box with a paltry amount of food aid in it. There's no medicine. There's no infant formula. This is all just trickery that is being used to further the genocide. And Amy, I've been talking.
I always wanted to tell you, Peter, do you know what the food is in the boxes that they were handing out briefly?
It's probably very similar to the type of stuff that we would see at feeding South Florida? Just to
Yes,
see
exactly.
this
They would give, yes, after
crappiest-
walking for
Yeah.
9 miles, let's say, a person is given a box to maybe feed a family of 4 one meal. And it's random stuff that it's like a can of this, a can of that. Like it's not anything that is helpful.
When Jen was creating degrees of momentum against Wasserman Schultz, we had this great friend who we're still friends with today that runs a real awesome nonprofit food distribution.
Yes.
Fresh fruits and vegetables, eggs.
It's predominantly healthy food for people. I mean, yes, there's some packaged stuff
Yeah.
that she has, but yeah.
The fresh
she's
fruits and
great.
vegetables is what makes the difference. I mean, I volunteered at least once a month when I was down there. And of course, I would take my own container of fresh fruits and vegetables. I wasn't, that was my compensation, was being able to take fresh fruits and vegetables.
And he did that.
When we volunteered, we did once volunteer at Feeding South Florida. You want to talk about night and day?
Oh, it's gross.
Because remember, Feeding South Florida is Feeding America. It's just a branch off of that nonprofit major corporation.
It's an NGO problem.
100%. So you look at the quality of food that came from Mobile School Pantry versus Feeding South Florida, and you'll understand that the Feeding South Florida type food, basically everything in cans, that's what's ending up at places like this.
And here's the problem. When you had UNRWA or other that are actual humanitarian organizations that actually want to help the people, what they do and how they organize and how they set up as organizations that have been doing this forever is in a way that doesn't lead to chaos and gets people the nutrition that they need. So somebody doesn't need something like Travers was saying that needs to get cooked and mixed with water. They don't have water. So, these aid packages that they're getting are a joke for the few people that are getting them. Whereas if you had one of the actual aid organizations, people would be getting what they actually need in a dignified and organized manner. But that's the point. Yeah, continue.
A personal friend of mine whose family is from Khan Yunis, 4 members of his family were shot sniper style yesterday by the Israeli military when they went to pick up these aid boxes at one of the 2 sites, the one near Rafah. What is happening is that the Israelis are also using this as an intelligence operation. They've kidnapped a number of Palestinians. They've interrogated them when they don't get the answers they want. They've disappeared them. They haven't given any mechanism for how people are supposed to line up or know where to go. What we're hearing from sources on the ground is that word just spreads via WhatsApp and text messages. Oh, there's going to be aid delivered in this place. People go there and it's just pure chaos. So none of this is by accident. This is by design. And you have on the one hand a pittance of aid that is being actually distributed relative to what is needed just to address the basic starvation factor in Gaza right now. And on the other hand, Israel is using this and the desperation of people to further dehumanize Palestinians. And when they go to try to desperately grab whatever aid they can, as we saw happen at a UN warehouse, then they say, well, Hamas is shooting starving people trying to get food. No, Israel has intentionally starved the population of Gaza now for 3 months. They have continued the campaign of dehumanization, and they're using food as a weapon of war in an effort to further dehumanize Palestinians. And the last thing I'll say about this is Netanyahu and Bezalel Smotrich, who's in the war cabinet, both said that the point of this is to lure Palestinians as though they're animals going into a cage, lure them with the bait of promise of aid, and then entrap them in the south of Gaza where they can either kill them in an increasingly shrinking killing cage or lock that cage and ship them off to another country. They call it Trump's plan, but actually it's been Netanyahu's life's work to try to erase Palestinians as a people and as a territory.
And that, to me, like that, his whole thing, I know we stopped it a few times, that whole thing from start to finish so perfectly encapsulates the entire situation that we're seeing with this aid right now.